Hey, what's up? Jason Goodwin here with another exciting tutorial. Today we are going to be looking at creating epic text with layer styles. So let's go ahead and open up a new project. So we're going to go to File, New, and we're going to make this 1920 by 1200. Make sure that's pixels. And we'll do 72 resolution. We could always change the resolution to make everything a cleaner, crisp lines, being that we're working with vector shapes rather than just pixel bitmap work. So we'll go ahead and hit OK. We're going to go File, Save As. We're going to go ahead and name this EpicText. And we'll go ahead and just put our last name so we know that is ours. We'll hit save. And if you're doing this for an assignment, you'd want to save that in the correct directory to save that. For right now, I'm just showing you if you're doing this on your own. So then I've got a grunge texture here, a rusty grunge texture. We're going to go ahead and drag that in. And we can go ahead and hit enter on the keyboard or hit the checkbox. So we're going to get this here, and we could go ahead and just scale that up so it's nice and clean. And you'll notice it's a smart object, so we'll go ahead and right-click and rasterize that. Got to make sure you right-click on the layer, not the thumbnail. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and delete this layer and title this one Background. And we're going to do New Layer. And we're going to grab the black color here, and you can swap them here to black. You grab our brush tool, B for brush. We're going to change this to a 1500 pixel brush and 0 hardness. And we'll go ahead and zoom out, and then what we're going to do is just kind of lightly brush around. Since this is a large brush, it's kind of and I got a little too close to the edges, so what I can do is just kind of move this around to get kind of the look I was going for. That's about right. So we're going to name this layer Vignette. And we're doing this so that we can kind of focus our attention to the center here. Now we need a nice, good, bold font. Something that's really going to stick out for this, that we're doing epic. And I'm going to go ahead and switch to the text tool, and we're going to change this to, let's do Show Card Gothic. Hit enter, and we're going to change the font to 450 and the color to white. Click OK. And then I'm going to click right in the composition. It automatically creates a new layer. You'll see over here, layer 1. We're going to name this Epic. Kind of center that. Okay, next we're going to double click the layer styles, and we can do that a couple different ways. You could go to layer and then layer styles, and you have all your options here, or we could just double click and it will pop up the layer styles window. So we're going to go ahead and add a gradient overlay, so you'll see you get your options by clicking the text here. We're going to click the gradient, give us another pop-up on my other screen here, and this is our gradient right here. And so what we're going to do is click this black box. We're going to go ahead and change that color to a specific color. I'm going to do like this darkish purplish color. We're going to click the white box, and might have to pause the video but to catch these color codes, but you're going to put in the color. So once we put in that color code here, we click OK. Click OK again. And we've got our gradient overlay, adding some color. So now what we're going to do is go ahead and add some satin in here. We got to click the actual word. We're going to change some of the settings here. So we're going to do opacity 50. Let's do the angle like 19 or 20. It's fine. And the distance we're going to do 26, and the size 30. Then your letter will kind of change a little bit, look like this. Now we're going to add a little bit more of a glow, so we're going to select inner glow. Let's get some glowiness on. And let's do, and you could always come back and change these settings, like because screen can add some nice effect to it as well, but we can do an overlay. We're going to do 85% and 30 pixels for the size. Go ahead and click OK. Alright, so now we're going to put a large stroke around this, and we want to be able to control the stroke separately from the letters. So what we're going to do is duplicate this layer, and you could right click duplicate layer, or you could do Control J. We get our copy here. We're going to double click the effects, and we're going to go ahead and turn off all the effects back to white, and we'll turn on stroke, and you're going to go back to blending options here, and the fill, we're going to set that to 0. Now the fill is, it says fill opacity, but it's the same thing as the fill right over here. So you see how it changed to 0, it updated. So we're going to take the stroke here and change this color to white. You'll see. Click OK. And we're going to change the size here to 15. And we want to make that on the inside because we want to do sharp edges. So we're going to do inside. And we'll go ahead and leave the, also make sure the color is set to white as well. So we still are keeping the white stroke. So now we've got that on a separate layer, and you can kind of see it's, if we alt click, all by itself, right? Now the only thing is if we wanted to edit this, we couldn't put a gradient stroke on it right now because it's already got a color stroke on it, so we'd have to cancel that. But what we can do is we can stack by flattening this layer. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new blank layer, and we're going to then shift or control click Epic copy, control E to merge, or you can right click and do merge layers. We'll merge layers. So now we can go ahead and rename this layer. Let's actually name this Epic Stroke 15 pixels. And so now we alt click, we've got that separate layer. There's no effects to it, so it's just the stroke. If I control click the thumbnail, you'll see we got just that selected. Alright. And the shortcut for that, for just viewing it, is I alt-click the eyeball and alt-click it back so I can view just that layer. Nice little trick there. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and put a new stroke on this and a gradient as well. So the first thing that we're going to do is go ahead and do the gradient overlay. we're going to use the stroke for something else. We're going to click the gradient here, and then we're going to click the little gearbox here and load metals. And we'll get this pop-up window here. You could say OK. And then it'll pull up our presets. And we've got the silver metal here. So we'll go ahead and select that one, and we'll click OK. And then we're going to go up to stroke, and we're going to change this to 2 pixels. We just want that nice black line, and we can leave the position outside this time. And we're going to change the fill type to be a gradient. So instead of just having a black line around it, we're gonna give the black stroke a gradient. So now we're going to select the steel bar. Alright, let's give it some 3D depth now. So we're going to add in a drop shadow. And let's make that 75%. Distance, let's do 6. And 8 for size. All the other settings are okay for now. That gives us just a little bit of shadow down here underneath the letters, which is kind of nice. And we're going to go ahead and add a inner glow as well to the stroke layer, so we get like a bluish looking tint to it. So let me zoom in here so you can kind of see. So we'll go to inner glow. Let's get that blue-like shine to the metal. So we'll change this color here. Let's just go up to a blue. Let's get like maybe a little bit brighter. That's pretty good right there. I'm going to do screen 75, 0, 0, and size. Let's do 8. Awesome. So now you see we got this nice blue glow around our edging as well, which is really nice. We can click OK on that. So now you'll see what layers we have is the Epic Stroke, the EpicText layer, a vignette, and the background. So now what we're going to do is take this EpicText layer, we're going to duplicate it, and we're going to go ahead and rename this pattern. We're going to add like a texture to the text and also change the color at the same time. So we'll go ahead and double click this layer, and we're going to remove all these effects here. We remove all the styles. Now we're going to change the fill opacity to 0. So go to blending options here, change the fill opacity to 0, and then we will go to our pattern overlay. And you can even see my latest pattern that I put on it. This might actually look cool if we do color burn. Okay, maybe not. Could, with a little bit of work, get this EpicText. That's pretty epic. Make it small. Anyway, but the one that we're going to select is actually, I got several cool patterns here. Actually, it's going to be under color paper, which is just a default one. You can change this list to a small list so you can actually see what they're called. We're going to grab the craft paper, and we're going to set the opacity to 70%. Now you'll see we get this reddish texture now where it kind of fades up here and gets darker. And we will go ahead and click OK. Hit OK. Awesome. So now what we need is to create kind of this 3D look to it, give it some depth to the actual whole letter as a whole. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this stroke layer that we've got here. We're going to duplicate that, and we're going to call this Epic Stroke 3D. This could be our 3D look. And we're going to go ahead and move this down like so. A good 4 pixels or so, maybe 5 pixels. So I'm just using the move tool. I got show transform controls on, and I'm just hitting the arrow keys to go up or down. And then we're going to double click the effects, layer styles. We're going to go ahead and turn off all of those. We're going to do a color overlay instead of it being white. And we're going to actually make this black. We're just going to have a black dark shadow. 100%, we can just hit OK. It's kind of dark. We'll hide our background so you can kind of see what it looks like now. So we got this nice clean look to it. And the other thing that we're going to do is we could also move this layer down underneath Epic, so that way we don't have the black straight across right there. We just have it just at the bottom. So that's looking pretty good so far. Now what we want to do is we're going to add a little bit to this stroke layer as well. So we're going to go ahead and do the drop shadow on the stroke layer. And we're going to set this to white. We will do 50%. It's not so slightly transparent. We're going to do the distance of 30 pixels, and this will probably be easier to see if I turn back on the background. So we can go 30, 0, and size we're going to do, let's do like 75. Make it pretty big there. And the blending mode we need to put to normal, so you'll see we get this white area. So if I put it 100%, you can see the drop shadow is just because of the size and the distance, we're blurring it out. So let's move this back to 50%. And we can click OK. Now the text is complete, so what we're going to do is to add a little bit more to this composition. We can emphasize our text a little bit more by kind of adding some highlights on the background. So I'm going to create a new layer and grab our white color. Right, you got to grab our brush. Got to change the size here, and we can go ahead and just pop this out. Okay, I think that's a little too big. There we go, something like that. And then we're going to reduce the opacity a little bit. We're going to change the blending mode to color dodge. You can see this look that we're getting. Go ahead and bring this down a whole lot. So at 0, bring it up just a little bit, maybe 10%. And we could still come back and erase different areas. You know, we can, so it's not perfectly even around there, right? So that's looking a little bit more descriptive. We could also shift click all of the Epic layers and grab the move tool, and we can just move those up just a little bit. And now we're going to add our name in here. So we don't have to start from scratch, I'm going to duplicate EpicText and bring this, let's bring it up actually. So then we can move it down, transforming it, so to speak. And we're going to put
double click. We're going to change this font to something around like 142. And if I do sharp, it actually cut the corners, so I forgot to do that on the other one, but we could put none, so we get really nice tight edges here. And it is kind of pixelated due to the fact that this is a low resolution project. So now we got our layer, so this is, I'm going to just shorten this so that I can read it. So that's my normal layer, just like my normal text layer, just like Epic. So I would end up duplicating this, call it pattern, bring this up, we'll go through and put the pattern on. Let's do that craft paper, color burn, turn our fill to 0. There we go. And we will then go ahead and duplicate this layer, call it stroke, and I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the pattern here, and we just want to do a stroke on it. And we also need to turn down our fill opacity, which is good, so that's fine. And then our stroke, we'll go ahead and do the white stroke. Now 10 is even 15, if we did just like before, is a little too big, so we'd do maybe 7, and this also needs to be on the inside of our letters. So that looks pretty good. Could even do 9. Call it good. Create a new layer. Take these two and merge these together. So I could call this, my 8 pixels or however much it was. And now I have no effects, so now I can go back and I can say, alright, I need to do a gradient overlay. And then we're also going to do the stroke. Let's do 2 pixels. On the outside is fine. And we're going to change this to a gradient and do the steel bar. And maybe just do 1 because yeah, that's looking a little bit better. And so at this point, if I didn't like how thick the font was, I wouldn't be able to go back and really fix that because I've already merged the layers. But what I can do for this stroke, instead of doing it outside, I can do the inside. So it's a little bit smaller, not as big as it was before. So then we have that. I could also do the stroke 3D, right, which is again taking the stroke, duplicating it, naming it 3D. We remove everything and put the same effects as we did before. So the drop shadow, let's see, and it's going to be kind of hard to see it anyway, but we might have to reduce some of these options as well. We could take all of these layers and move them up. Set that in. And you can see I skipped a few steps, but you can read through the directions or go back and do the same pieces that you did for the stroke. So I'd go to my stroke, double click that. So we also had the inner glow, right, that was set to a bluish color. I believe it was overlay. And so this layer, I was actually only covering it up. This layer needs to come down underneath, right? Because that's our 3D layer. If we move it down, now you see it. And we're supposed to do a color overlay is what it was. And then black. So then we get that same metal look. And I could even go as far as to organize these and drag them into a group, because it could be by name, and we could group this here, put this as the title, whatever it may be for. And there we've kind of created, there's our final product. And the last thing we're going to do is modify the color combination. So we need to do that. We're going to go ahead and go up to layer. We can do a new adjustment layer, and we're going to do the gradient map right down here at the bottom. Pop up. We can just leave that name and convention the same for now. And we're going to go ahead and put this on top. And let's do a gradient of, we could do purple to green to orange. So we'll go in here. Let's do purple. We'll just click to add one and drag it away to get rid of it. Go ahead and add a green and orange. Awesome. We hit OK. And we're going to set this blending mode for the layer. The blending mode for the layer, we're going to set that to overlay. And that overlays it. And that's pretty ridiculously strong. So let's go ahead and drag the opacity down so we can get something that doesn't look so dog poopy. And we'll do kind of looks a bit much. We'll probably do maybe somewhere around 18. We could go as far as changing it around. We could bring some of these middle pieces together. And there we have it. Ta-da! The end results. We have some EpicText. And don't forget to save the PSD to your personal drive and turn in the EpicText _ last name as a JPEG.